All right, hello everybody, and welcome to today's Creatio online user group. We're going to be talking about the Creatio mobile app today. I think that we can all say with relative confidence that the events of the past now 2 years have made remote work and remote accessibility to our data pretty important. So I think this is a relevant topic for Dana and Megan to cover with us today. Per the usual, if you have any questions or comments throughout, you can toss those in the chat and we will answer those for you. And I will also make sure that you guys get this recording, and if there are any relevant links or documents associated from the event as well, in a follow-up email within 48 hours. So let me start with some quick intros. I am Deneen Madura, my face is blurry, and I am the Director of Marketing. Megan Sheehan is our Director of Project Management, and Dana Abu Salem is our Business Analyst, and these two lovely ladies will be taking us through this mobile app today. So I'm going to turn the floor over to them to get us going.
Thanks so much, Janine. So first things first, we're going to kind of talk about our agenda for today. We're going to discuss the basics of using the app, kind of show you what the app will look like. We're going to start configuring the app to show you that difference. And then we're also going to set up some mobile notifications within the app as well. So first question is to ask is, when do you use the mobile app? Obviously on your phone. When you're using your phone, you're always going to use that app. If you're using the tablet, you can use the app or your browser. So you kind of have that option between both. But that's obviously a little screenshot of what that would look like, but we'll get that into depth in a little bit. So some things I'm going to cover when looking into the apps is we're going to kind of talk about the login process, kind of what you need in order to log into the app. We're going to search and view a basic record. We're going to see how that integrates with your maps, your email, and even phone calling. We're going to edit and create a record because you can do both within the app. You can also attach some files, easily view some dashboards, and then you can also kind of see how you can work offline. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the mobile app to kind of start sharing that. All right. So logging into the app, once you're signed up for Creatio, you will receive a link to your domain, which is used for your app. Like the desktop version, you will need your defined username and password. And now once you're logged in, this is kind of what your typical screen will look like. So first things first, we're going to go ahead and search for the record. So we're going to click on contacts. So one thing to notice, the difference between a desktop version and the mobile version is on your desktop, you will see a list of your contacts here. On the mobile version, it's actually only the most recently viewed contacts. So that's kind of the difference. Searching is made quite easy. You're kind of just searching for a name and it'll show up, or you can do it based on filters. So you also have filters. You can, filter based on an account. You can do that. Oh, sorry about that. So you can do that. You can obviously just search. You can do it based on folders. If you have set folders and pre-made folders, you can do it that way. So that's kind of what searching for the record. So let's go ahead and go into a record to see what that typically looks like. So similar to the desktop view, you have the contact's full name, their account they're associated to. You have the extension phone number, mobile phone number. You'll notice a little icon next to the mobile phone number. This is honestly pretty cool. This is a cool feature within the mobile app. If you click on that icon, you can actually call that individual. And then once that person's called, it'll automatically log that call for you, and you can go ahead and set some call results as well. So that's a pretty cool, neat feature within the mobile app. You can also add the business address or home address or whatever it is through your contact. Same little icon kind of shows them that. So once you click that little icon, that will take you to your integrated maps. In my case, it's my Apple Maps, but you can kind of see that as well. Let me go back to Creatio. Then you have your activities. So activities are kind of things that are associated with your contact. You can log in activities simply by clicking this little plus sign at the bottom of the screen. I can say call contact. Um, you can set the start date and the due date. You can change the status, and notice that they are required fields. So let's say that it's in progress. And then again, the category is there to do. Is it a meeting? Is it paperwork? You can customize those within those configuring your apps as well. Priority of the meeting or the activity. You can set the owner. By default, it's based on the person that's creating the activity. Connected to what account. If you have to reconnect to something else, you can do that directly from here. If the account that you want it to associate it with that contact is not found, you can create an account directly from here as well. So that's kind of a neat feature. And then add any participants as well. So once that's completed, you can save that and it automatically be added into your thing, into your instance. Same thing with speed. You can kind of say, hey, what you're working on to share with your teammates, calling cold leads, for example. That's kind of what I'm working on. You can publish that. Your team members can see that as well, just to kind of see what you're kind of working on. You can add, again, another message through that way as well, whichever is easier. Going back, so this is the list of all the activities. You can see the first one's the one that we just created. So let's say that I wanted to edit a contact. That's obviously is done simply. You can click that little edit found on the top right of your screen, and you can do so just like that. You can create another number. You can select what type of number it is, business phone, email, web, whatever it is that you wanted to use. If you was to use email, obviously you would integrate your email address and you can email them directly from here as well. The more you add, obviously the best practice it is. You can add their job title, the department, any other notes or contact attachments. So this is a cool feature. So you can attach any associated invoice to that contact. So that's a really cool feature within the mobile app. And Megan will actually show you how to configure that within your system as well. You can also create a new contact within the mobile app as well. You would click on the plus sign and you would do so just like that. So let's say my full name is Dana Smith. The account, again, you can either associate to an already existing account or you can create a new account directly from here. And let's do a demo account and click save. Obviously, the best practice is to fill in as much as information as possible. Communication options. Hey, I want to call this person. This is the number. And this is a mobile number. Address, you can add that address and networthy and so forward. So this is a kind of basic information, standard information that the mobile app already has. Any other configured information that you want your team members to know, Megan will share that as well. Some other cool features we have is going back to this, we can also see our dashboards. So our dashboards are a really quick way to kind of see our overdue tasks. You can see that I wanted to call the contact down at the bottom of the screen, how many overdue tasks you can, drill down on that. And if you wanted to see what my overdue tasks are in general, you can just click on that little arrow and it'll take you directly to them. Clicking on that task, and it'll take you directly to that activity as well. And then I'm going to switch it back over to Megan, and she's going to show you how to configure your mobile app to kind of show you how to make this as customizable for your business as possible. Let me stop sharing my screen.
All right. Thank you, Dana. Just a couple of quick comments, just things that jumped out at me as Dana was demoing. One thing is that you may have noticed there were different fields or more fields when she was editing the contact or creating the contact than when she was viewing it. The mobile app will automatically hide empty fields when you're viewing a record, so it's not taking up space on your screen with things that are not filled in. So that's why, for example, job title was showing when she was editing and creating a contact, but not when she was viewing her contact that had a blank value for job title. And I feel like there was something else, but whatever it was, it's gone. So if it comes back to me, I'll share that thought later. In the meantime, I'm going to be showing you how you can configure the mobile app to take that starting point that Dana was showing us and add in some additional fields or data points that are important to your business. So we're going to talk about mobile workplaces, how to control which sections are included and how to configure each section. And I'm going to go ahead and just bring up Creatio and show you where this is done in the application. So configuring the mobile application is an administrator function. So you've got to be a system admin to have the access to do that. On your system designer page, you want to look for the mobile application wizard. The mobile app does use separate layouts to control which fields and sections are included in the mobile app so that you're only prioritizing the data that you really need to see on the mobile app and not taking up space with data that's a little bit less important or less relevant to someone who's out in the field, visiting a customer or a prospect. Just like the main app, you can set up multiple mobile workplaces. So in the main web application, the workplaces is this menu here where you can have different workplaces assigned to different users. You can do the same thing with the mobile app where users can be assigned to one or more workplace, and they can have different views of what the app looks like on their phone, depending on which workplace they choose to be in. We're going to go ahead and just edit the main workplace here, but we could create a new workplace as well just by naming it. Within the workplace setup, we'll see the roles for who is using this particular workplace. So in this case, our default workplace is shared with everybody. And then we can click this green button here at the top to set up the sections that are included in that workplace. And if you do have users with multiple mobile workplaces available to them, they can choose under the settings inside the app which workplace they're working in at any given time, and they can switch back and forth between them pretty quickly and easily. So if you've got someone who has maybe some crossover functions who works with a couple different groups or departments, they could have access to both and just choose the appropriate one based on what they need to do at that given moment. So here's my list of which workplaces I have configured in my mobile application right now. If I want to add an additional workplace, let's say, for example, that I want to include the orders, let's just say, I can go ahead and click the new section option here, and it will give me a list of all of the sections that are available in my Creatio that are not currently already on my mobile app. And I can choose the one that I want to add and add it to my list. It's going to put it at the bottom of the list. The order they're listed in here is the order they're going to show up in the app. So if I want it somewhere else, I can click on it, and then I'll get some up and down arrows where I can choose to reorder this list. And I can do the same thing with something that was already here if I want to move something else down. Once you've picked on a section, besides those arrows, you're also going to see options for the 3 different types of configurations we can do for each section: the list setup, the page setup, and the detail setup. You'll also have the option to delete a section. So if there's a section that's in here by default, or a section that you used to need and you don't need in the mobile app anymore, you can delete it to just take it out of that workplace. It's not actually deleting the section from Creatio in any way. It's just taking it out of this workplace. The list setup, as you might guess, is where we're going to set up what the list view looks like on the mobile app. So Dana was showing you how you could search and see different lists of contacts using filters or folders. And when you're looking at that list of data, this page here is going to control which fields are shown in that list. You might see we've got 3 different settings we can set here. We can set the so-called title of that record in the list, the subtitle, and then additional columns. So the title can only be a single field. This is going to be whatever the name of the record is in that particular section. And in the case of contacts, it's going to be their full name. The subtitle lets us then display additional fields as well as the additional columns. And you might be wondering what the difference is here. I grabbed a screenshot so I could show you that. Here's what this is going to look like in the app. So you've got the title on the first line, the subtitle here on the second line, and then the additional columns are displayed below that. The subtitles don't show the names of the fields. They just show the values kind of all in one line. And then the additional columns show below that 1 field per line with the field label next to them. So depending on how you want that data to display in the app, you can choose where you want to add that field. For example, if I wanted to add someone's email address, I could go ahead and just click this new column button. It will pop up a list of all of my contact fields. This would include any custom fields that I've added to the contact object. And I can go ahead and select that column. Same thing if I want to show something in the additional columns area, I could go ahead and I can pick additional columns here the same way. You do have to pick them one at a time, so you just have to kind of keep, going back into that button as needed to add all of the different columns that you need. And I guess I should briefly show you if there's a column you don't want anymore, that's what the delete column button would do, is just take it out of that particular setup. Next, our page setup is going to control the page that we see when we click into a in particular record on the mobile app. So when Dana was viewing the Dana contact on her phone, this is what was controlling the data that she was seeing. This again is going to have multiple sections to the page, a little bit more flexibility in that we can add additional sections as needed. So first of all, we can just have some fields that display immediately on the page. And then we can have some additional fields that display with headers above them. This might include fields that are part of a detail on our web app as well. So things like the communication options where you've got that header on the web app and you can have multiple phone numbers and email addresses. It's going to work the same way on the mobile app where it's going to be a detail with a list of phone numbers and email addresses. And same thing with the contact addresses object and so on. This one here is just a group of fields. So rather than putting job title, department, and full job title at the top, which they could have done, they chose to put them a little bit further down the page and group them with this header, just to help make it easier to navigate that screen. So in any of our field groups or just that initial group at the top of the page, if we want to add an additional field in here, again, we're just going to click that new column button. It's going to bring up a list of all of our columns. And we can pick the field that we want to show there. So if we want to show gender, for example, just pick and add that field. Same thing here in our field group. We can just add a new column here as well. Not really sure what else it makes sense to add to the current employment group, but maybe the role. And we could add additional groups if we wanted. If we had more data we want to display and we wanted to organize it with more categories, we can come down here to this new button at the bottom and add a new column group and just give it a name. I'm going to be really boring and just call it new group. And just like many of other system admin functions in Creatio, you're going to give it a user-facing name and then a backend name. So we're going to go ahead and just take the space out of that backend name. And then this is going to work the same way. I've got my header. And then I can pick which fields I want to see here. Again, we have to pick them one at a time, which I momentarily forgot there. Go ahead and just pick this one. These do allow me to drag and drop to reorder within a particular section, but not between sections. I can't take something that's here and just drag and drop it down to another section. I would want to delete it out of this section and then add it as a new column in this section if I want to move it from one section to another. I can also reorder these sections on my page with the up and down arrows. So if I wanted this new group to be higher on the page, just go ahead and click the arrow to move it up. The details are going to be similar to some extent. It's going to show me a list of the columns that are currently being displayed in that detail. So if you can mentally think back to when Dana was showing you the phone numbers, for example, it had the phone number, and then right next to it, it had the what type of phone number is it? Is it the mobile phone or the cell phone? Those are the two columns that were chosen here to display in that contact communication options. If I wanted to just show some other data points, I'm not sure there's much else in that object, but I could go ahead and I could put the modified by date or something if I wanted to in there the same way. And the same thing with any of these other details. You might notice, again, if you're thinking back to Dana's demo, Dana had her phone number, she had her addresses, and then she had an option to click activities. And we're not seeing that option here on this particular page. That's somewhere else in our settings. That's because when we have a detail, a list of data that we want to show on the mobile app, there's two different options for how we choose to do that. You can do it as what they call an embedded detail or just as a detail. And again, I've got a screenshot here. Let me switch back to PowerPoint really quick to show you the difference between them. So this is an embedded detail where all of the values for that detail are going to display just one right after the other on the main page. When you're viewing the contact, you're seeing all of the contact addresses right there, one after another, versus having to click on a menu to then open more full screen. just the list of that data. So Dana clicked on activities and it opened a list of all of the activities for the contact rather than showing those activities directly on the contact page. Generally speaking, a good rule of thumb might be to think about how many data points are going to be in that detail. Someone's not going to have 100 addresses, but they might have 100 activities over time. And so we don't want to have to scroll past 100 activities to get to the next thing on the page, but scrolling past 1 or 2 addresses probably isn't a big deal. And so I'd be thinking about, how much data is there, as well as the frequency that I need that information. Address is often one of the big important things that someone's looking for on the mobile app: address, phone number, things like that. Whereas the activity history is nice to have, but not something that I need every time, that I need right and immediately when I click into an account or contact. So if I want to set up a new embedded detail, I'm going to do that on this page. If I want to set up a new detail, I would do that back in one of the other options. So I'll show you that in a minute. But first, the embedded detail. This is going to work very similarly to adding a detail to a section page in Creatio. So if you're familiar with that process, this screen probably looks really familiar. If you're not, we do have a user group that's recording that's available on, going through the details of how that's set up. But basically here, we're just going to pick which object we want to show. Like, say we want to add the attachment object that Dana was showing you. That one's actually not in here by default for whatever reason. We're going to pick that that's the detail we want to show. We're going to pick which field in that detail ties back to our contact. So it's the contact field, and that contains our contact ID. And so that's going to tell Creatio how to link the data in this detail back to the contact that we're viewing. And again, it will automatically add some columns in here. It's going to add the default required columns. So let's go ahead and save that. That's how we would add a new embedded detail. If we want to add a new standard detail or not embedded detail, we would click on the detail setup button. And this will show us that right now there's 2 normal details set up here, activities and feed. And we can add a new detail basically the same way. The setup process looks very much the same. It's doing the same thing. It's just picking what is that table that we want to pull in. I'm trying to think what else activities contacts have. They have an employment history or something like that. And it may not be called that though. Clearly, I didn't think this part through of when I was planning for this. Let's see. So we would just do the same thing. We would pick whatever header information we want or whatever data we want. Sure, let's show their bulk email responses. This should tie to a contact, and then we can tie that to the contact ID. So whatever that connected data is, whether that's a standard object, again, or a custom object, a custom detail that you've added to the system, all your details will be in that list to pick from, and then you just make that association. This probably wasn't the greatest example, but that's okay. It will give us the idea. One other important thing about detail setup is you might notice there's nothing in here to set which columns are being displayed on that detail. So when Dana clicked into the list of activities, the way Creatio was deciding what columns to show on that list of activities was actually based off of the activities object list setup. That means if you add an object that's not a section in your app, you don't have a way to actually set the columns for that for your detail. It's just going to show whatever the required fields are in that list. So generally speaking, if you're adding something as a detail on the mobile app, you probably also want to add it as an object so that you have more flexibility to set up what that detail page is going to look like, both the list and the record page within that detail. There's probably exceptions to that, like any rule, but generally speaking, that's going to be your best practice. And then you would simply save. This save can take a while, so I'm going to actually not click save right now, but you would save those changes. Once those changes are saved, the mobile app will pick up the fact that there's changes and prompt the users to re-download the settings basically on their phone so that they get those new updates and they can start seeing the new functions that you've added for them. And so it's pretty easy, pretty straightforward to add additional functions into the mobile app. One other question that typically comes up when we're talking about the mobile app with people is whether or not you can do what's called a push notification, an alert on your phone when things happen in Creatio. And Creatio does actually support that. You can set up push notifications to your users if there's something that is pretty urgent that you want them to see right away, especially if you have a lot of people who use Creatio primarily, when they're out in the field or are not frequently at their desks. And so you want to be able to alert them right away to the fact that something's happened without relying on them logging into the Creatio web application or checking their email to see that email alert. Just like doing an email alert, this is set up through processes. So you would build a new process to trigger that actual notification. I've got a blog post that we published this week that's got the full details of how to set this up, but just to kind of give you a quick overview, this would be set up through your process library. And you would just go ahead and set up a new process for every notification that you wanted to trigger. And you would use the start event of your process to define the logic for when that alert is triggered. So for my example here, I just did a lead gets assigned to somebody. And so every time a lead gets assigned, this is going to take a second to load here. It's been a while since I opened this page up. Probably cleared my cache since then. But you just define the criteria for that in your process start event, just like any other process that you might build. And then the key thing here is you're going to use this send push notification process that Creatio's got out there for you as a default process that you can call as a sub process from any other process. So they've done the heavy lifting of like what actually needs to happen on the back end to make the alert trigger on someone's phone. All you have to do is send the data to that process and it will handle that for you. This really does not want to load here. Well, here, I'll just show you from the blog post instead. So here's my start event. In this case, again, it's just the owner of the lead has changed. The lead is assigned to somebody. And then we're going to push through to that sub process the information that it needs to trigger that alert. So it needs to know who to send it to and what message to send them, essentially. There's also an option in there for if you want that notification to open up a particular record in Creatio versus just opening the app. So you might be familiar with this from other apps you use on your phone. Sometimes when you click on that alert, it just opens the app, and sometimes it goes to something directly tied to what the alert was. So if you want that direct link, it's got options in there to set that up. And Deneen will make sure to include a link to that blog post when she sends out her email to you after this, so you can read through all of the details and get down to the nitty-gritty details on that.
Thank you. I was just going to say that.
I anticipated you, Deneen. We've been doing this too long.
Far too long.
All right, so unless anyone has any questions, that's going to wrap up our presentation on the mobile app. We do have a couple of slides left to go through some new functions that have come out in Creatio in the last couple of releases. So the version 7.18.3 release was announced just over a month ago, back in early September. And there were a couple of kind of small things, but hopefully significant things as well in this release. For those who might be supporting users in multiple languages, the user tasks function that's called from processes now supports calling tasks in users' languages. So rather than having to complete the task in English, you can set it up to complete that task in other languages as well. They're continuing to make improvements to their chat functionality. No big surprise there. If you've been keeping an eye at all in the release notes, this has been a common theme for the year that they introduced this new chat function, and they're slowly expanding the functions there. So you can now initiate a chat from the section panel. So if you've got someone's Facebook Messenger handle or any of the other chat platforms that they support, you can initiate that conversation directly from the contact record, for example. And for those of you who are involved in system administration, you know that compiling and saving packages can sometimes take a little bit of time. So Creatio has introduced some performance improvements to help minimize the amount of time you spend waiting for your packages to compile and save, which is nice. And then just a week ago, Creatio announced the 7.18.4 release. So this one has a couple of exciting things, although some of them are still in beta testing. The first one, you might be familiar with the duplicate search functionality in Creatio where you can set up rules and then you can assign users who have permission to go look at those possible duplicates and decide, yes, merge these, or no, those are not matches. They're trying to expose that data to more eyes, essentially, I guess, so that it's easier to know when you're looking at an account or a contact that has a possible duplicate. And so they're going to add an alert on the account or contact page when you're looking at an account or contact that is a possible duplicate. That one is still in beta testing, so if that's something you're interested in checking out, you can contact Creatio support to get included in the beta. And same thing, this next one is also in beta testing, which is some improvements and changes to the Exchange calendar syncing. So those changes are specifically around doing more real-time syncing and also viewing participant responses if someone accepts or declines your meeting inside of Creatio. And then there were a couple of other changes as well. The ability to configure export permissions on a section by section basis. So prior to this release, you could either say, yes, this user can export data, or no, they can't, and it was applied system-wide. They're adding in the ability to say, this user can export accounts and contacts, but not opportunities and invoices, or any other section as needed. And then they also have some additional performance improvements, this time around the dynamic cases function and the action panel where you can see upcoming activities. And Deneen, I'm going to throw it to you for the ending here.
All right. Yep. I didn't know. Wasn't sure. Sorry about that. All right. So as Megan mentioned, if there's any questions that come up, go ahead and toss them over the wall to us. But in the meantime, Creatio's Accelerate event is coming up in early November, and there's going to be some follow-up events later in November as well. So keep your eyes peeled for that. I'm sure that there'll be some interesting revelations that come out of those events, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you guys there. Thank you so much for your time today. Megan and Dana, way to kill it. This was very meaty. I loved it. And as I mentioned, I will make sure that you guys get all the relevant content to this in the next 48 hours. So appreciate y'all, and we'll be talking to you soon.